Martin, and this is Real Life with our very favorite life coach, Susan Harf. You know, Susan takes us through those incidents and those situations that we sometimes get ourselves into trouble with. And like you, I can't wait to hear what's on her mind today. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Rose. I'm happy to see you, and I'm so glad that you decided to join us as well. So have you ever felt like this? My spouse is driving me crazy.
Yes, yes, and I think that he would say the same thing. My spouse is driving me crazy.
He meaning your spouse.
Me meaning my spouse.
I thought
right.
maybe you meant my spouse, which would,
Yeah.
would say the same thing. So I have a client who said to me, my husband just retired, and you know, Susan, we only have one fight a day. And I said, hey, that's pretty good. And she says, but it lasts all day. I love that. And sometimes it's true, and we just came through this hard part of the pandemic, and people were together all the time, and that has exacerbated things. And I hear a lot of stories, Rose. In my line of work,
I bet you do.
I hear a lot of stories from a lot of couples. And that has enabled me to learn about not only what we all have in common, which is my spouse is driving me crazy. We've all felt that way, no matter how great your relationship is. But also I've been thinking a lot about over the last 40 years, because I've been married for 43 years, how do we...
Congratulations.
Thank you, Rose, thank you. Well, you have a good number too.
Yeah, well, we're in the 20s, but
Yeah, that's great.
40s are the goal.
That's fabulous. So the thing is that we need to figure out a way to handle those moments where we feel that way and why we feel that way. So one of the things that comes to my mind is that people talk to me about they get along with their spouse, but the little things that their spouse does really drives them crazy. So I have a client who has a husband that is just, who I've met many times. He is very warm, he's very kind, and he loves to relax. And that's why she married him, because he's very content. He enjoys doing fun things with her, and doing the dishes is not high on his priority list. And even when she leaves him a list, which he's very happy to receive, maybe most of those things are not going to be done when she comes home. He works from home, so that's sort of another part of their dynamic, their dance. But she's not home all day, and when she comes home, she doesn't want dishes in the sink. She wants to be able to make dinner without clutter on the counter. And she says to me, is this too much to ask? And it's not. But what I have found out from her also is that, so I ask her, what does she do when she finds that, you know, these things are not done? And she says, well, he says, come sit down next to me. Come sit down and talk to me about your day. And she says, no, I have to do the things I asked you to do because I can't make dinner now. So she says, then I feel like I was very snip, like I was very curt with him. And I say, you were. But she says, I really am sick and tired of cleaning up his mess. And that phrase led me to think about, you know, cleaning up his mess, when in fact, it's both of their mess. It's just that she asked him to take care of it.
Well, it could be his mess if he's the one that made dirty dishes all day long.
Correct.
And left them in the sink, and she came home to that.
Correct.
But if she left him too, and he just didn't do it, then yeah, it's a joint mess.
So you're kind of taking her side now. So
well, I'm just
so
saying, if he left the dishes in the sink all day long, and he was snacking, or
Yeah.
he was having lunch, or he's doing whatever, and she comes home to a sink full of dishes, and she left it clean in the morning, then I'd be like, yeah, you know, he could have put his own dishes in the sink. But if they had breakfast together and all that is still in the sink and on the stove, and she had said, could you just put this away while I'm gone all day? Well, in that case, you know, he had 8 or 9 hours to do that, and that was plenty of time.
Yeah. So in your case, it matters who made the mess or how it was developed or who's responsible for it in the first place.
Not necessarily who's responsible for it, but if I left it clean and he knows I want it clean and he all day long was making a mess in the sink, I think it's reasonable that he would put the dishes away or he would clean up the sink. Or you know, even if the mess wasn't in the kitchen, if it was somewhere else. I'm like, well, you know, you did this all day and you know it bothers me. Why wouldn't you fix it?
And so you have this expectation that he's going to know that, and why not do that?
Well, it might have been on the list, though, right?
And it probably was on the list. The problem is that she, in this case, the client that I'm speaking about, she does always clean up other people's messes. And she really doesn't care who made the mess. She doesn't want it there when she comes home. And when she asks him to do things for her and he doesn't do it, she immediately goes into overdrive, and it doesn't matter how long of a day she's had and how tired she is, she's going to do it before she starts her evening. And what I said to her was, what would happen if you didn't do that? What would happen if you said, you know what, when he says, come sit next to me, come talk to me about your day, I want to hear all about it, you said, okay, and didn't clean up and didn't clean the mess. And she said, oh, I can't take it. It would be calling me. The dishes would be calling me. And I said, try it. And one of the things that she found out is that cleaning up the mess in the sink was a metaphor for what she's done all her life, which is clean up everybody's mess. And she likens that to, well, I'm willing to take responsibility, so you can't blame me. But in fact, she's so busy doing all of the time, and this is somebody who's a very high achiever, she's accomplished a lot, I admire her for a lot of reasons. But what she does is, she spends her free time doing, accomplishing, running after, cleaning up after. She's always got to be busy. She is someone who, when she comes to the group of women that she gets together with, she's got the knitting needles in her hand. She's never just being. And once she found that out about herself, she didn't like it. And she started to think about, well, let's try it, and what would my life be if I wasn't always busy? And then when we unpacked that part, we realized the reason that she always needs to be busy, and that's because she doesn't like thinking about the thoughts that come into her mind when she's not busy. And so, of course, I was very curious about what those were, and those had to do with how her parents treated her when she wasn't the best. Now, this is somebody who was valedictorian of her class. She went to an Ivy League college. She has a very high-level job. She's a great mother. She's a great wife. She loves her life. But it's all about accomplishment. And when she started to relax the way that he does, they opened up a whole new world for the two of them.
So it's not really that her spouse was driving her crazy. That was really just the symptom of it, because it was her that had the issues that she needed to resolve. You know, him leaving the dishes in the sink, or her thinking that he was the one driving her crazy really wasn't it, because she was driving herself crazy because of wanting to get everything done in a certain way in a certain time and stay busy.
Yes, it was her own issue. However, he was driving her crazy because we invite our partners into our issue. You know, we live in our own world. We all have a very complicated, complex universe that we're living in called us in our head. And
we don't tell everybody about it
no.
ahead of time to say, we know what's going on in our own head. And
yeah.
Gosh, why don't you get that? Or why is that still happening?
Exactly. And so instead what we do is we judge. So here's another example of my spouse is driving me crazy that has to do with judgment. Client said to me, my spouse drives me crazy because he doesn't really love me. And I said, wow, okay. So how do you know he doesn't love you? Because when I'm with the two of you, and they came to me as a couple, when I'm with the two of you, I think he loves you. I'm gonna vote for he loves you. No, he doesn't, because he never gives me a compliment. He knows I would love him to bring me flowers. How does he know that? Have you told him? No, but when he sees me around flowers, he knows I love them. Okay, not the same thing. So if he loved me, he would do those things. So I pointed out to her, when I'm with the two of you and you're in a conversation, he touches your hair, he strokes your hair. When I'm with the two of you, he doesn't necessarily give you a compliment, but he gives you attention. He listens to you. When I'm with the two of you, I hear about things you've done together, trips he's taken you on, presents he has purchased for you. She says, yeah, but he's not He doesn't give me compliments. He doesn't give me flowers. And when he is attending to me, sometimes he's on his phone, sometimes he's watching the television. So what you want is more attention, committed attention. Yes. Have you told him that? Not really. So one of the things I say to people is, we all went to a school to learn how to be a human being, and nobody went to Harvard. The school that we went to was called our family of origin. And that's where we learn to do the things we do and the things we don't do. And none of our families were perfect, and our parents' marriage was not perfect, and our family we grew up in was not perfect. That's what I mean when I say nobody went to Harvard. So that's the school we went to learn how to be a human being. So what do? When we meet somebody we need to count on the fact that they are in their own universe, they're in their complex drama in their head, and we need to invite them into ours by saying, you know what, honey, I would love flowers. I would love it if you would compliment me more. If that makes you happy, I don't judge that. I say, great, get it. But you got to tell your spouse that is what you want. And you have to let them know that let them know that this is what you want, but also let yourself know that that doesn't mean, when you say to yourself, he doesn't love me, you got to not listen to that voice in your head and instead replace it with, what does he do for me that does show love?
So I'm hearing a couple of different things. First of all, using those I statements for what you want, for what's important to you, and not expecting your spouse or significant other to be able to read your mind just because you pause by the flower stand, that means, oh, they must want me to get them flowers right now, or I should do that later. First thing, I kind of get that. And the second thing is, if there's negative chatter, in your own head, don't make it into more than it really is by generalizing it to where, now he doesn't love me, he doesn't care about me, he thinks I'm ugly, any of those things, just because you're not getting that specific feedback that would validate it for you.
Especially, yes.
Okay.
And Rose, you're a fabulous life strategist because those are very, very important points. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And especially when you get those messages from somewhere else. So for instance, you have a friend whose husband does compliment her and yours doesn't. Or you're watching a television program. I mean, that can be so suggestive to people. Well, my husband doesn't do what that person's doing on that show. Okay.
Well, that can be artificial too. So
of course. But that's, like you just said, we need to, instead of paying attention to that, have a different voice in our head that follows that first voice that says he doesn't do that, and say, what does he do? And so that leads me to a third issue that I want to bring up, which is that we need to spend time thinking about, on a regular basis, why we were brought together with this person, what drew you to this person, and further, the things that you love about this person. So for instance, usually people are drawn to their spouse because they're different. I had a couple in my office who came for counseling because they were not getting along, and I said, what drew you to each other? And he said to me, she was so kind and sweet and caring and affectionate and so observant of everyone else and so in tune with people, and sat back and listened and was a great listener. And I said to him, what don't you like about her? And he says, she doesn't have her own opinions. I asked for her opinions, she doesn't even know what they are. I want to go somewhere, and I say, where should we go for vacation? Wherever you want to go. Where should we go for dinner? Whatever you want. He says, I want her to be more of a person. I don't respect who she's becoming. And I said to her, why are you here? What don't you like about him? Or further, first, why did you marry him? And she says, oh, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. He was young and starting a business. He was going to work as much as he needed to, as many hours as he needed to make it. And I was very attracted to how confident he was and how he knew where he was going and he knew how he was going to get there. And I said, what bothers you about him now? He's bossy. He tells me what to do. He doesn't listen to my point of view. So those things are on the same continuum. So instead, what I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to think about, and by the way, that couple did need counseling and they needed to learn tactics and communication techniques and ways to communicate that they didn't know about. But what we need to do for the purpose of our conversation is we need to bring ourselves back to how much we love each other. And what happens, the reason we need to do that, there's many reasons, but one of the main reasons we need to do that is because when we do that, we will be different. And the best way you can stop the negative communication that's happening between the two of you is for you to change. The way to change your relationship is for you to change yourself. That is how you do it.
And do you even do that in the middle of the crazy? Like if it's getting to that moment and you're about to think, oh, here it is again, to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to change me right now. I'm going to change how I'm going to react to this. I'm going to take a deep breath and here we go.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you do that, some people say to me, well, it takes two to tango and I'm not going to do it by myself. Try it. Because what happens is when you change and you don't do the dance that you did even yesterday or an hour before. That's what's so exciting about this is you can change it right now even if you're in the middle of the argument that you started an hour ago. So if you be different, if you give a different response based on, wait a minute, I forgot something, I love him. If you give a response based on that, you're going to see something happen that you haven't seen yet. And what you're going to see happen is that person's going to show up for you differently. It may be in that very conversation, it may be in the next one, but that's what happens when you do something different. So I'm going to give you an example, and the example is called Banana-gate.
Okay.
And it's Banana-gate because in my mind that's what it is, because it happened in my house. See, my husband is so kind that he gave me an example to share with you of what he did to make me angry, and so that I could share it with all of you. And you know what? He doesn't know this story.
Okay.
He's going to find out right now. The reason he doesn't know is he doesn't know it made me angry. So this is what happened. People who know me really well, and Rose, you know a lot about me, but I don't think you know this.
Okay.
I do not like overly ripe bananas.
I did not know that.
I know you didn't. Okay, so now you know. I don't like ripe bananas. I like them when they're just about to be ripe, like kind of green, but edible. So not really hard green, but I like them when they're just turning. I don't like bananas that are ripe.
Bananas with spots. Those are out.
Oh, those are definitely way out. Okay. So there was a banana on the counter, well, actually in our fruit bowl on the counter, and it didn't have any brown spots on it, but it was ripe. And I started eating it, and I didn't like it. And so I put it down. I said, oh, that was lousy. That was terrible. And my husband says to me, wow, you didn't like it. That's all he said. Wow. I'm sorry you didn't like it. And I got angry. And the reason I got angry was this. Why are you saying, wow, you know I don't like ripe bananas. Don't act like you don't know that.
Right.
You're acting now like you don't know that. And that was my first thought.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't a surprise to him because you've been married 40 years. You've had the same feeling about bananas.
43, Rose.
43, okay.
And it shouldn't have been a surprise to him. But he was acting like it was a surprise to him, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was angry. And because I've been talking about this for 43 years with you and with others, I do practice what I preach sometimes. So I started thinking to myself, he's making me angry right now. I'm angry. Why is he acting like he's never heard me say, I don't like a ripe banana? And then I started thinking about him and how I love him and all the things he does for me that I love. He's very supportive. He is my main cheerleader. He's very kind. He's a fabulous husband. He's an amazing father. He is successful in his work, and I really respect that. There's a lot about him that I admire, and I love how he treats me. And I was angry at him because he was acting like he didn't know that I don't like ripe bananas. So then I started thinking about, after I thought about all the things I love about him, I started thinking about why that bothered me. Why did it bother me so much? Because as you know, I don't believe anybody makes you feel anything.
Right.
So why was I so angry?
I'm going to guess that it was because you thought he should have already known, and you were judging that part of the fact that, you know, he knew me well enough to know, and then he really judged me on the banana and shouldn't have said anything about it, even if he thought it. Yeah.
Well, there was a part of what you said that is absolutely true. He should have known. Okay. Well, he did know. He did know. But he was acting like he didn't. When he said, wow, like that wow made me feel like he was surprised. What bothered me about that after I unpacked it was it made me feel anxious that in my mind he acted like he didn't know that about me, because that translates into he doesn't know me, and that translates into I want him to know me. That's my intimacy with him. My intimacy with him is that he knows everything about me. That's what makes us intimate. He knows me. He gets me. So I was angry because I was feeling like he didn't get me.
Or could you be thinking that he was criticizing you in a way like, oh, wow, you know,
No,
like here you go again?
It wasn't that. I mean, that could be that for some people. But no, it was definitely not that kind of wow. It was like a surprise. Now, in the end, now I know that he didn't realize that the banana was ripe because it didn't have spots on it. But my point here is that when I unpacked it, I was anxious. It made me anxious to feel disconnected from him. And I felt disconnected because I believed he was behaving as though there was something at that moment he didn't know about me, which was so much of a truism for me, that he should know, that he does know.
You want to think he's the most important person in your life, so you love spending more time with him than anyone.
That's right.
Right?
So here's how it ended. It ended with me understanding two things. One, I understood why I got angry. And that brought me even closer to the real point, which is why I love him and why I don't want to be angry with him. So I didn't feel a need then to say anything. I didn't need to say, you made me angry. I didn't need to say I felt angry. I didn't need to use an I statement and say, I felt angry when you said that, because in my own mind, I was able to do the steps that I'm asking you to do.
How do those of us who are not experts like you are find ourselves in that situation, maybe getting angry right then? What are a couple tips that I can use for myself right then?
Stop yourself and think, how do I really feel about my partner? How do I feel about my spouse? And if you are in a healthy relationship, you think to yourself, here's why I love them. Here's why. I started talking about the client whose husband left the mess. She needed to think about, I married him because he's so relaxed, because he is so content. I love that about him. Bring yourself back. Ask yourself the question, I'm angry right now, and am I willing not to be? And then if I'm willing not to be, what do I need to do to get there? This can all go on in your own head. You don't need to say anything. So if I'm willing not to be, if I'm angry and willing not to be, I need to quickly now come up with the reasons in my own mind why I married them. And here are the reasons. And then you tell yourself the reasons. And in that client's case, she was able to say, he's all the things I love, and that contentment that guy goes along with not having do the dishes on his priority list. But when you can, what we said earlier, another thing we said was, when you can take responsibility for that and you can show up differently for your spouse, absolutely they're going to show up for you. And especially the most important part of this is you need to change yourself in order to change your relationship. And when you are in the highest form of yourself in a relationship, that is what makes somebody show up for you in the highest way that they know how. And then when you do that on a regular basis, you're setting the stage, you're giving yourselves a cocoon from which to then argue. So when you do have an argument, you're already in this cocoon, you're already thinking wonderful things about each other, so that when you have a disagreement, you don't go back to those snap judgments that you were doing before, which brought you to the coach or brought you to the therapist. So you change that. You change the pattern, you change the dance.
I think what I love about it is that we can find ourselves in the middle of something and we can absolutely change it right then.
Yes.
And I think basically I'm hearing, Susan, that when I change the way I look at things, the things are changing too, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Susan, absolutely fantastic. So maybe our spouse isn't always making us crazy, maybe they are, but you've given us some great strategies for how to make things better and even remember why we married them and why we're continuing to be happy. And that's what it's all about. Thank you. A special thanks to our favorite life coach, Susan Harf, for helping us understand about what happens to us for ourselves when people are making us crazy or maybe not. Thanks for joining us next time, everybody. For Susan Harf, I'm Rose Martin. For Real Life, we'll see you next time.